All right, today we're diving deep into a really foundational method in language education. It's called situational language teaching, or SLT. Let's get right to it.
So here's our plan. We're going to kick things off with what SLT actually is. Then we'll break down its core ideas. After that, we'll step into a classroom to see what it looks like. Check out a real-world example, and then, we'll look at the good and the not so good.
All right, first things first. What exactly is situational language teaching?
Okay, so here's the absolute key idea. You never ever teach language in a vacuum, right? With this approach, every single new word, every little grammar point, it's all introduced inside a very specific, carefully created situation. The whole point is to make the meaning so crystal clear from the context that you don't even need to translate it.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty. What are the fundamental principles driving this thing? What's the actual blueprint for an SLT lesson?
If you boil it all down, SLT has a really clear philosophy. You speak before you write. The big focus is on building a super solid foundation in speaking and listening first. Once you have that base, everything else just gets layered on top, really methodically. Vocabulary and grammar start simple and then get more complex.
Now, this whole approach is built on two big ideas. First, there's the theory of language. SLT basically sees language as a set of predictable patterns, almost like Lego blocks. And then you have the theory of learning, which is all about behaviorism. And that idea says we learn things by forming habits. So when you put those together in an SLT classroom, the goal is pretty simple. Drill the correct patterns over and over until they just become automatic, like second nature.
So what does this actually look like in a real classroom? For the people who are actually in there? Let's take a look at the very specific roles the teacher and the students play. And this dynamic is absolutely central to how SLT works. Think of the teacher as the conductor of an orchestra. They're the one modeling the language, setting the pace, and correcting every single mistake. The students, well, they're the orchestra. Their job is to listen and repeat. It's all about absorbing, replicating, and trying to form those perfect habits. It's a very controlled setup, all designed for maximum efficiency.
So how do they do this? Well, the teacher has a very specific toolkit. You're going to see a lot of drills. The whole class repeating things together in chorus, or the teacher rapid-firing questions where there's only one right answer. And of course, there are the props. You will always see props, pictures, real-life objects, you name it. Anything and everything to create that situation and make the meaning of the new language absolutely impossible to misunderstand.
All right, let's put all these pieces together and see how they create the actual rhythm of a typical lesson. And you'll see it follows a very predictable step-by-step sequence.
And this sequence, this is really the heart of the whole thing. It starts with the teacher presenting the new language inside a clear situation. Then the students practice it, but in a super controlled way, like those drills we just talked about. From there, the reins loosen a bit for some freer but still guided practice. And finally, the teacher checks to make sure everybody's got it before they move on. It's kind of like climbing a ladder, right? Each step is built securely on the one before it.
And this image, this is a perfect example of that presentation stage we just mentioned. Look at this. The teacher didn't just walk in and write used to on the board. No way. They've drawn a whole story. You've got a rich guy, a big house, a fancy car. They're using this whole picture to build the idea of a past life before they even say the words. So when they finally say, he used to have a Rolls Royce, the context makes the meaning totally obvious. Okay, so we've seen how it all works. But the big question is, does it actually work well? Let's start by looking at the pros, the key advantages of this approach.
So one of the biggest takeaways here is that SLT can be fantastic for beginners. It's really good at building a strong, accurate foundation in the basic sentence patterns of a language. All that repetition, it can really build a learner's confidence. And because it's so structured, it's pretty straightforward for teachers to pick up and run with.
But no method is perfect, right? So to get the full picture, we have to flip the coin and look at some of the potential downsides and criticisms.
And yeah, here's the other side of it. Those same drills that build accuracy, they can also get really repetitive, maybe even a little demotivating. And since the teacher is running the whole show, there isn't much room for students to be creative or spontaneous. The heavy focus on being correct all the time can actually make students scared to make mistakes, and you need to make mistakes to become fluent. I think the biggest challenge really is making that leap from the super controlled classroom practice to the messy, unpredictable world of real conversation. That's a tough gap to bridge.
So, this all leaves us with a really important final thought. You probably won't find many classrooms today that use pure SLT, but that core idea that language should always be taught in a clear context, that's still incredibly powerful.
So the question for teachers today is, how can we take the best parts of SLT, that clarity, that structure, and blend them into the more communicative, dynamic ways we teach now?